Hi everyone, Crista Cowan here with another episode of The Barefoot Genealogist. Today we are talking about shared family trees. Now we're going to split this video into two sections. The first one is going to be for those of you who have a tree on Ancestry and want to share it with others. We're going to walk through how to do that and some of the different roles that you can assign to those that you share your tree with. Second half of the video is going to be for those of you who have had trees shared with you, and whether you've never used Ancestry before or a long time user, I just want to give you an overview of some of the things that you can do with the trees that have been shared with you. Now, for those of you who are interested in sharing trees with others, make sure you make note of the point in the video at which I start talking to those to whom we are sharing our trees. Because one of the things that we've discovered is a lot of times we'll invite our non-genealogist family members to come view our trees, and they show up having accepted that invitation and they have no clue what they're looking at or what to do with the information. So you might want to share the back half of this video with them, and knowing where in the video that starts can give you the opportunity to share it with them and just say, start watching at this point, instead of them having to watch the whole video. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's go ahead and dive in. So we are going to talk first, as I said, about sharing your family tree with others. So when you've built your family tree on Ancestry, whether you have a subscription or not, you can share that tree with others. And there's a lot of different reasons to do that. One of the most popular reasons we see people sharing their family trees is so that they can work with their DNA matches. We also see people sharing family trees with other individuals researching the same family members. But for a lot of us, we want to share our family trees with our families, with the people who we are doing this research for, our brothers and sisters, grandchildren, nieces and nephews, whoever the case may be. So we give you the ability to share your tree with anyone, whether they have an Ancestry subscription or not. And they do not need to get a subscription in order to access your tree. Now, when you share your tree, and I'll show you where we do that in just a minute, when you share your tree, you can do that by username or by email. Now, obviously, if they have an Ancestry account, they're going to have a username. Make sure it is a username, which is usually going to be a single word, no spaces. It looks like a username as opposed to their real name, which is going to be a first and last name. Sometimes users have the ability, actually always, users have the ability to choose whether they want their username to show on their account or their real name. You can't share a tree with a real name. It has to be a username. If they don't have a username or don't know what it is, then you can share it with their email address. And it does need to be the email address that is associated with their Ancestry account if they are an Ancestry subscriber. If they don't have an Ancestry account, of course, just share it with their email address. They'll get an email notification, and they'll be able to create that process will create a free guest account for them on Ancestry. Again, no subscription is required in order for somebody to have a family tree shared with them. Now, in the process of sharing, you're going to have a couple of decisions you need to make. The first thing you're going to need to do is to decide on the role for the individual. There are three options: guest, contributor, or editor. A guest just means they can look at your tree. They're invited to come and see your tree. This works really well, again, for people who don't have an Ancestry account and you're just inviting them to come and see your tree. The people who, if you have a private tree, you can invite other people to look at your tree, the people that you trust and are willing to share that information with. But they can't do anything to your tree. They can't change anything or edit anything. They can only look at it. Now, the second role you can assign is a contributor. A contributor can add information to your tree, but they cannot edit or delete anything. So that gives them a little bit more control. So for example, for a long time, my mom had contributor access to my tree because we had scanned a bunch of family photos, and she was, I gave her the ability to contribute so some of those photos could be uploaded to the individuals in our tree to whom they pertained. And so that allowed her to contribute without being able to change or delete anything. Now, an editor is a role you want to be really careful with, because an editor can do anything in your tree that you can do, and they can see anything that you can see. So for example, my tree is public, which means anybody who has an Ancestry subscription can see my tree. However, even in public trees, research notes are private. And if you've spent any time with me, you know how exhaustive my research notes are. I spend a lot of time and energy entering information, transcribing records, working through my research process. And so, excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. Nobody can see my research notes, even though my tree is public. However, anybody that I invite as an editor to my tree can see those private research notes, can edit them, can delete them, can create notes of their own. So that's how the editor status works. You want to be, again, like I said, really careful with who you share that editor status with. But I've shared editor status with my dad, for example. He and I get together for a couple of hours every Sunday night, and he lives in a different state, and we get on the phone and we work on our family tree together. And so he can make any of the changes in the tree that I can make. Then the final decision you need to make once you've decided who you're sharing it with and what their role is whether or not you're going to allow that person to see living people. So in family trees on Ancestry, whether they're public or private, the information about living people is privatized. Now you can see it in your tree because it's your tree. So I can go into my tree and I can see myself and my parents, my brothers and sisters, my nieces and nephews. I can see all their names and dates and places and attached documents and photos. But any one of you, if you were to come look at my tree, it's public, which means any of you with a subscription can see my tree. If you were to come look at my tree, all you would see is the word private, because you wouldn't be able to see my name or my birth date and place or any of the photos attached to my profile or any of the documents or documentation. So living people are automatically privatized in online trees. However, when you share your tree with someone else, you are given the option of allowing them to see living people or not. So in some cases, like with my dad, I want him to be able to see everything in the tree. And so I have allowed him to see living people. In other cases, like, a second cousin once removed who I shared my tree with once, I didn't want her to be able to see all of the living people in my tree. I didn't know her really well, and so I didn't know whether to trust her or not with the information about my nieces and nephews and their birth dates and places. And so I just chose not to share living people information with her. So that's how that works. Now let me show you where that all takes place. So when you're viewing your tree, and the way you know that it's your tree is there's no username up here next to the tree name. If you click on the name of the tree and you go to tree settings, you'll be able to see who you have already shared your tree with. Click on this sharing button and you'll see who you have shared your tree with if you've shared it with anybody. You can see there I've shared my tree with a few people. I have here a cousin, for example, that cannot see living people. I have my dad here. He's listed as the editor on my tree. Everybody else is invited as a guest. So that tells you who you've already shared your tree with. You can click the Invite People button here, and that will open up a sharing screen. Here is where you can share via email or by Ancestry username. If you know the username, again, it's a username, not a real name, not like a first and last name. It's usually going to be a singular word, or by email. Now, once you determine the email of the person you want to share with and you enter that, then you decide their role, either guest, contributor, or editor. If you have any confusion about that, just click the little I for information and it will show you exactly what people can and cannot do in your tree. There's a little pre-formed email message, and if you want to include a personal message, you can do that as well, and then click Send Invitation. Now, that person will then show up here on your list and it will tell you if they have responded to your invitation or not, meaning they've received your email and clicked the link in the email to accept the invitation. In this case, you can see here I've shared it with 2 individuals who have not accepted that invitation and 3 individuals who have. And then once they show up on this list here, then you can check that box, can see living people or not. Again, you have full control over that. If it's been a while since they have and they haven't responded to your invitation, you can re-invite them. So it'll just trigger another email message to them, inviting them to come and view your tree. And if you've decided that for whatever reason you've shared information with them, and I do this sometimes, I'll say, I'm willing to share my tree with you. You've got 2 weeks to, copy whatever information you want to copy about the individuals in my tree, and then I'll remove that access. I find sometimes that's a little motivating because it encourages people to engage quickly rather than having long-term access to my tree. And so you can then remove their access to that tree. Now remember, again, people say, well, if your tree is public, why would you want to share your tree? Well, not everybody on this list has an Ancestry subscription. So even though my tree is public, what that means is it's public to anyone who has an Ancestry subscription. If I want to invite somebody who does not have a subscription to view my tree, then they have to be invited to see my tree. So think about this in terms of like your DNA matches. A lot of people taking DNA tests right now showing up on your match list, but unless they have an active Ancestry subscription, they can't see your family tree. So we sometimes still have to invite them to our trees. And like I said in my messaging, I try to include just a little note that says, I'm going to go ahead and give you guest access to my tree. You've got 2 weeks to take a look at it and let me know. If you need more time, let me know. I'm not trying to be rude or hard-nosed about it. What I'm trying to do is encourage them to engage, and sometimes setting a time frame for that encourages them to engage a little more quickly. So that is how we manage invitations and tree sharing, and I hope that that is useful information for you. Now let's talk to those of you who have had trees shared with you. Some of you may be longtime Ancestry members who fully understand how all of this works. Some of you may have never looked at a family tree before. You may have received an invitation to view the tree of your aunt who's been working on this for decades, or your grandma. And so I just want to give you a quick tutorial about where you're going to find that family tree and what you're going to discover, and some ways to navigate the information that is being shared with you. Now, just let me let you know that if a tree has been shared with you, you would have received an email, you would have clicked on the link. That creates a free guest account for you on Ancestry if you don't already have a subscription. If you already have an Ancestry subscription, it's business as usual. But if you've never had an Ancestry subscription before, this invitation is creating a free guest account for you. So just be aware that you may now start to receive some emails from Ancestry, and that you have this account, this guest account, that you can manage. If you have questions about that, I have some other videos about managing your account, managing your profile information. You can feel free to go take a look at that. Now, online, when you log into Ancestry or click on that link, if you go to trees and you go down to the bottom to create and manage trees, you're going to be brought here, and your My Trees list, unless you are an Ancestry subscriber, is probably going to be blank. But you will have this link of trees, or this tab here, trees shared with me. And that's where you're going to see the tree or trees that have been shared with you by other Ancestry members. You'll see the name of the tree. You'll see the date that the person who shared it with you, or anybody, last modified that tree. You'll see your role. So what role has been assigned to you? And let's just talk briefly about those roles if you didn't watch the first part of this video. If you are listed as a guest on someone's tree, what that means is that someone has invited you to view their tree in a read-only state. So you can see the information, you can explore it, but you can't do anything. You can't make any changes, you can't add anything to the tree, you can't delete anything from the tree. So you need to just kind of be aware that if you are a guest on a tree, that's the access that you have. Now, sometimes people share trees with us because we're family members, and if we see something that's wrong about ourselves or a close family member and we're only a guest, that just means you need to contact the tree owner to let them know that there's something in the tree that needs to be changed or edited or deleted. The tree owner's name is going to be directly under your role on this list. So that's where you can see who it is that shared the tree with you. Now, sometimes people use their real name as their username, and sometimes people use a cryptic username. So if you don't know who this person is, you might want to reach out to them. If you do know who this person is, then great. Hopefully it's a family member, not random people sharing trees with you. If you've decided you no longer want access to this tree, you can just click remove from list, and essentially it removes your sharing link so that you no longer have access to the other person's tree. So that is, again, under trees, go down to create and manage trees, and then click on trees shared with me. That's how you're going to be able to see what's going on there. Now, if I click on any tree here, you're going to quickly discover that I can, I'm going to be able to see their family tree. Here in the top, you're going to see the name of the tree owner. You're going to see my role again, the tree name. And it's going to be showing you what we call our tree view. So the tree view is going to come in two formats. It's either going to be a pedigree format, and pedigree is just simply an individual with their parents and their grandparents and their great-grandparents and their great-great-grandparents. So it's just marching back through time from child to parents to parents to parents. So that's this pedigree view. The other view that sometimes comes up is what we call our family view. And family view is sometimes a little bit more confusing for some people. Essentially, you have a focus person in the tree, and you can zoom in or out, and it will show you who their spouse and children and grandchildren are. And then up here, if you click and drag around, you'll be able to see who their parents and siblings and nieces and nephews and aunts and uncles, right? So it's a more complete view of a family as opposed to just an individual and their parents and their grandparents. It's spouses and children and grandchildren and aunts and uncles and nieces and nephews, and right, it's a more complete family view. The way you navigate around this is just simply by clicking and dragging, or you have this little map down here if you want to very quickly zoom to another part of the tree, and then you can zoom in and out. Now, one of the things we've discovered, especially for those of you who are brand new to family history, may have never looked at a tree before, is that it's easy to get lost. And so we allow you to recenter the tree or jump to the home person in the tree at any time, and that will take you right back to the beginning. Now, the home person, just so you know, is not going to be you. It's going to usually be the person who owns the tree or somebody that they have designated. So if you think you're in this tree, if this tree has been shared with you because you are a close family member, you can just come in here to this Find Person link up here in the top right corner, type in your name, and it will find you in the tree, and then everything on the screen will be centered around you. If you're a DNA match who somebody has shared their tree with, chances are you're not in the tree yet. One of the reasons we share trees with our DNA matches is so we can start to figure out how we're related. And so that's an instance where you would want to go to the pedigree view and start looking at the ancestors of the person who shared the tree with you so that you can see if you have common ancestors. Common ancestors is how we define a genetic connection. If somebody is on your DNA match list, it's because you inherited DNA from an ancestor and they inherited DNA from that same ancestor, and the two of you connect in some way. Now, an easy way just to kind of figure that out is when you're looking at the home person on a tree, whatever the number of cousin is on your DNA match list, it's going to be one less set of great-grandparents. So if somebody is your fourth cousin, you're going to have a set of great-great-great-grandparents. So whatever cousin number, it's always going to be one less set of great-grandparents. That's kind of a general rule of thumb when you're looking to connect with some of those DNA cousins. So if you've got somebody who's a fifth cousin, a fifth cousin match would have common 4 times great-grandparents. So, and so on, right? It's always one less number of greats than it is the cousin number. So the way you read a pedigree is from the home person, or the person who you are a DNA match to in the tree, you just start counting back to parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, which means anybody in this back generation here, these would be great-great-grandparents. Anybody that is also descended from them in the same generation is going to be your third cousin. So you kind of start to wrap your head around what this information means to you as you're looking at this tree. Now, one last thing I want to share with you before we wrap up has to do with how you, again, just navigate this tree a little bit. I've showed you pedigree view, I've showed you family view, I've showed you how to find people in the tree, and that works for yourself or anybody else you want to search for in that tree. The other thing you can do is you can actually explore the profiles of any given individual in the tree. So you just click on a name in the tree and it opens up a profile page. That will take you to a place where you can see the personal information about this individual. Their name, their birth date and place, their death date and place. You'll see the names of any spouses and children. You can click on any one of those spouses and children. It will take you to a profile page for them. Over here on the right, or on the left rather, you're gonna see a little timeline of their lives. Now in some cases, especially the further back in a tree you go, the less information that's going to exist. In the case of people who are a little bit more modern, sometimes that list gets more extensive. You'll start to see all sorts of information about an individual in that timeline. The other thing you want to pay attention to, and this is important for those of you who are new, is what sources they have. How have they documented the information in their tree? Did they just copy it from somewhere, or have they actually looked at genealogical records and come to some conclusions that the people in this family tree really are who they say they are? So that's how you kind of navigate. Again, I just wanted to give a high level. If you have had a tree shared with you and you are interested in learning more, then there's plenty of videos here on YouTube that you can watch to understand a little bit more about how genealogy research works. But let me wrap up with some things to remember, right? First is your role determines your access, which means if you've just been invited as a guest, all you can do is look at that tree. If you've been invited as a contributor or an editor, you are welcome to add, delete, change anything you can. And keep in mind, if somebody has invited you as an editor, if you don't know what you're doing, be really careful because you could kind of mess up their research. So they may not have understood what they were sharing with you. Just recognize that if you're invited as an editor, you can do anything the tree owner can do. So be really careful with that. You do not have to have a subscription in order to have a tree shared with you. Trees can be shared with anyone. And so if you don't have a subscription and you don't have an Ancestry account, it will create a guest subscription for you that is free. Now there is a little bit of a caveat with that, which is that if you do not currently have an Ancestry subscription, you'll be able to view the information in the tree. You'll be able to view the source citations in the tree, but if you want to click through to view any of those records, you would need a subscription to access the records on Ancestry. And then just kind of feel free to explore the tree in different ways. One of the things I always tell people is just click on things in the tree and see what happens. Especially if you just have guest access, you're not going to screw anything up. You'll be able to explore the tree to your heart's content. So click away, feel free to explore. And then, like I said, if you are interested in learning more about how family history works, we've got lots of videos here on the YouTube channel. Feel free to explore around here as well. Well, that's all I have prepared for you today. Until next time, this is Crista Cowan. Have fun climbing your family tree.